Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the July meeting of the BLDC. And first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the June 22nd meeting.
Motion approved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Rachel will present the June 2023 treasurer's report, please. Okay. So can you just tell them? Well, we're already.
Yeah, we're already going. You don't have to do that. You there?
All right, so
we
treasurer
can,
report.
yeah, we can start the treasurer's report on page 4 with the restricted account. So the end of month balance in restricted was $796,891.30. We will skip over to page 6 for the UDAG account. The end of month balance in UDAG was $996,004.58.
Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that later?
Either way.
Let's go
I
through
guess
this and then we
I'll
can
go
circle
through
back
this
on
and
it.
then we
Yeah.
can circle back. On the receivables page, there's nothing new in particular. So we will.
We expect to see a couple of these next month be paid off,
Yes,
right?
so there's one loan that definitely paid off in July. That would be DD Bing, so next month we'll see that paid off. And then we are still expecting 142 Court Street to pay off. And we are possibly expecting North Depot to pay off in either July or August. So that will be great.
Rachel, I just have a question. I just noted Broome County Council of Churches has never made a payment. What's the status of that?
So that is a pass-through loan that we did, and they're waiting on a grant to
Okay.
come through from the state in order to pay us back.
Thank you.
On the same token, the government never has either. Yeah.
So the Garland has not begun making payments, and they're wrapping up their construction this season. So as soon as we get that final invoice from their contractor, she will start paying us back. So yeah, sometime in the next fiscal year, I would imagine she'll start making her payments. So if we skip over to the, the unrestricted page on page 8. There was the $10,000 option agreement payment. That is the large deposit there. And that was for the Charles Street Business Park, the Save Round option. If we skip to the Broome Enterprise Triad, there has been no activity. Mayor's Veterans Initiatives, no activity. And the grant account, no activity. So with no new delinquent loans, the end of month or the end of month delinquency percentage of all loans not designated as non-performing is 0.59.
Any questions for Rachel?
The only thing we wanted to circle back on was the UDAB fund. So the first resolution we're going to vote on today is a significant amount of money that will be coming out of that fund. So Rachel's been doing some work on projecting out other expenses that will need to come out of this, but we will have significantly less cash on hand in this account for the foreseeable future until we can figure out a way to get this Boscov's project fully completed and start. That's part and parcel of the lease negotiations and all the other conversations we're having with Boscov. So we did agree to make these payments last September when we signed their lease extension. So just going to be some short-term pain in that account, and Rachel has some additional figures that she can share if anybody's interested.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we have no old business, but we have 4 resolutions today, and the first being what Sarah just referred to. If you take a look at resolution 23.18, is a resolution of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation authorizing reimbursement to Boscov's Department Store LLC for maintenance on the boiler and freight elevator. So reading further, it's not to exceed $563,881.01 from the UDAG fund And as of right now, we are going to withhold $139,050 until proof of payment is provided by Boscom.
So to date, they've provided everything but that 139 in invoices and proof of payment for work on the boiler and the freight elevator that again was agreed to in that lease extension that the BLDC, the IDA and Boscom signed last year. This was work that needed to be done. It's integral to the structure of the building really and their ability to operate safely, not just Boscom's, but the building itself needed these improvements. So while we were doing these other lease negotiations, we identified these as more mission critical and time sensitive, folded them into that lease negotiations and agreed to front those costs. And really those are our responsibility as one of the landlords of this property, but we'll hopefully have a cleaner understanding of our relationship with Boscom's. The IDA is no longer going to be party to the ownership agreement once we finalize this lease. So it'll just be the BLDC and Boscom's negotiating, which I think will be a little bit easier, less complicated. But certainly we validated all of these expenses, and until such a time as they make that final payment of 139, we won't reimburse them for those costs.
The motion,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
thank you, resolution passed. Second resolution 23-19. A resolution of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation authorizing the president to enter into an agreement for the sale of 280 Front Street. I know that Sarah sent some background on this as well.
So this is really what I would describe as like a single family home lot between two other homes on Front Street. It's very narrow. It extends kind of far back. I think it's 0.18 acres. This was part of the properties that we received from the IDA when we took the Charles Street Business Park. These were pump stations that were associated with the former Anatech facility. They were designed to pull water out of the aquifer. There's a number of them that we own across the city of Binghamton. They do not have any function. They do not operate anymore. We had our engineering department go in, take a look and determine that there was no value to the materials or structure of the building. We had the IDA confirm to us that they had not, in the period of ownership that they had, ever had any use for them or any realization that they should retain ownership. The property owner next door wants to take control of the property, take over the maintenance. So we're planning on treating this as similar to our side lot program that the city of Binghamton has, where we sell the property at below market value, but really the value to the BLDC is that we no longer have to pay for maintenance costs, snow removal on the property. And really, it's not in the mission of the BLDC to own a property like this. It doesn't have any commercial or industrial development potential. It's really only well suited to be a side lot, or if somebody wanted to build a single family home on it. But as we know, that market for new build single family homes in the city of Binghamton, we're not seeing very many of those, if any at all. The expectation is really that it'll just be green space. It'll be maintained by the property owner next door. So,
And do we have a price?
it's $5,000. So the way we've been doing all of our sales through properties that we got from the IDA, so we take the price that we paid the IDA, we assign that to the acreage, and then we assign a nominal value on top that covers the cost of our maintenance over the last couple of years of owning these. So that price is $6,300. They countered with $5,000. I think that's a perfectly acceptable price because again, this just costs us money to own. I didn't get a chance to pull them, but we can. Pulling all of the maintenance records of things that we've paid for over the years. And I think it amounts to more than that $1,300 difference. The reason we're bringing this to you now and authorizing the president to enter into the agreement as opposed to authorizing the sale itself is that we have to notice the authority's budget office for sales that are below market value, and there's a 90-day lead time. So this is showing the property owner that we are engaged in this process to sell. I have advised them that it has to be approved by the authority's budget office, and there's this additional time period, and they were comfortable with that. Gives us some additional time to talk with Corporation Counsel about the best way to facilitate this, because I don't think the BLDC has disposed of real property in the recent past. So just making sure that our processes are all locked in, which will be good because ideally we'll be selling some of these properties that are under option at the Charles Street Business Park, and then we'll have a process built around this that will enable us to move those forward more smoothly.
The only thing I would add is just looking at the parcel from the aerial view and comparing it to the neighboring properties on either side. I'm not even sure if you could fit a single family house.
It's really tight.
Because you need to have setbacks for the side lots. So unless you built like a shotgun, very narrow 15 wide house, I'm not sure if you could fit on that front lot or even in the back.
Yeah,
a
totally
house.
agree.
That's why it looks as though it was a side lot that we took by eminent domain or something to put this put this pump house there.
Are we taking the pump house down?
No, the property owner has
We're
agreed that
taking-
they would,
We're taking the pump house down.
We are not.
We're gonna leave it there.
yeah, the property owner has said that they were interested in doing all of the cleanup and demolition that would have been required. I don't know that they're even planning on demolishing the pump house necessarily. They mostly
Eventually
just
they'll
wanted
have
to
to,
clean
because
up
it's
the,
deteriorated at a certain point, but.
Right.
That's another cost that we are avoiding.
right.
Are we sure that there can be no environmental problems with that pump station into the aquifer?
Is it disconnected, you know?
I don't know if it's disconnected, it would have to be capped, but it doesn't have any, it doesn't do anything right now because it's not actively drawing water out of the aquifer anymore.
The only, I guess, what does it have,
Recourse.
Access down to the.
does it have access to dump into the aquifer?
We
It
can
doesn't need to be
confirm that,
capped.
we can confirm that prior to sale. Engineering did not have any
It needs
flags
to be
when they
capped
looked
in
at the
some way,
property.
so, yeah.
Any further questions?
I'll make a motion on 2319.
I'll second it.
Moving on to resolution 23-20, a resolution of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation authorizing the president to enter into an agreement with Barton and Legis DPC for additional services to update the Clinton Street Neighborhood Business District revitalization plans. I know that we had previously entered an agreement with them, and I'm assuming this is just an update of that.
Correct.
Contract.
We would like to engage in negotiations with Barton Judas for a supplemental agreement to that contract to support our 2023 DRI application. The state announced that those applications opened yesterday. They're due in late September. So our plan is really solid. All of the information in the market study all still stands, but we need to do some updates on some projects, maybe include some new projects that have come up in the last year, take off some projects that we've decided to take on at the city level. And we have to do some additional public engagement, which we're planning on doing in September, and just reach back out to our stakeholders that were a party to this last year and make sure that they don't have anything that they want to add. But it'll be largely the same, a similar application, just updated with this year's facts and figures, and having the support of Barton and Legis to actually make those changes would be very helpful. I put the $20,000 as a not to exceed here because we're still negotiating that price. I do not anticipate we'll be anywhere close to that. I bought us some breathing room. My expectation is that we're somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000. The only thing that might up that price is last year there was a last minute addition to not the DRI process, but the New York Forward process, which is its sister program at the state that required municipalities to include a video. And a lot of communities had to scramble at the last minute to get that video made. So I want to submit some questions to the state about whether that's something that they're going to be looking for in the DRI this year. And then we can have Barton and Legis subcontract that out as part of this supplemental. So it might increase that fee a little bit, but I still don't think that we're going to get near $20,000. If that changes, I will definitely keep the board apprised.
I think every successful DRI has had a video.
Yeah.
So do the math, right?
Worth a couple $1,000.
Have you been happy with what they did before?
Yeah, I was very happy with their
Mhm.
application last year and the plan that was associated with it. I reference it a lot in things that we do throughout the year. So I've been very pleased with
They're a
that.
good firm.
Good.
What's the timeline on this round?
So due, I think it's September 24th or September 28th, and then they'll call us in for interviews at their leisure. Could be a
Here we
week,
go
could
again.
be 2 months. Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go again,
All
yeah.
right, all right. good
Hurry up
stuff.
and wait.
All right, do we have a motion? Right,
Second,
Betsy? Thank you.
And we're pulling the last resolutions. I had some conversations with HCR yesterday, and I just don't think the application is gonna fly in light of another application we have coming in from the city. So, all right, we'll continue the Boscov saga and figure out how we're gonna fund these improvements over the next 10 years or so.
Thank you, Sarah. Mayor, you're up.
Thank you. So as Sarah mentioned, the DRI was announced yesterday by the governor's office. I think that last year's application by the BLDC in the city turned a lot of heads, and what may have been a fait accompli with the winner caused some pause. So that's good. So I think we're very well positioned this year for successful application and updating the plan as we've just approved. I think is an important part of that. The other big sort of economic development has to do with the Water Street mixed use project. So I guess it was last week, the school district voted down the proposed pilot bond financing for the site. The school district had to weigh in, and I believe it was the first time in my knowledge that the school district has ever weighed in on a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, because the taxes were deviated in a way from the school district, county, and city to fund this pilot bond. The deal was a really good deal for the school district. It meant more than $2 million in revenue over 28 years. And then once the property was full valuation, many more hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future. That being said, they did not, in my opinion, properly weigh the pros and cons of the project, but nonetheless voted it down. We're not deterred. We're going to be looking at what can be done in terms of a new deal. We're conferring with council on ways that we can both advance the parking garage while we figure out the details of this housing component. I think both are still really important to downtown Binghamton. And I think that ultimately we will find a deal that works, and a deal that is structured in a way that we may not have to go through a heavily bureaucratic process of basically 4 different entities and boards approving one pilot. As I said to one of the reporters I spoke to, when you're trying something new, when you're trying to be creative, when you're leveraging what's available in state law that may not have been seen here locally before, you're gonna get some scrapes and some bruises, when you're the first one forging through the jungle, but that's okay. We're okay with bruises, we're okay with speed bumps, and ultimately I think we'll have a plan that works and a deal that works. So deal is not dead. It's the opposite of that. We're very active in negotiations with the developer to see a garage that supports Boscov's and all of the downtown small businesses, as well as this market rate housing, which is really critical in all of the different jobs that it would create in the short term, and also deliver hundreds of new people to downtown Binghamton. So that's kind of where we're at on Water Street.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. When you say this school district will get 2 million in revenue, what does that mean? Because that's not like they're getting 2 million in taxes.
Yeah,
So what does that mean in revenue?
Sure. So right now, obviously, the site on Water Street has generated $0 in tax revenue for 50 years.
Right.
School district hasn't received any money. When we negotiated the payment in lieu of taxes agreement, while the school district, once this development came online, would not be receiving the full tax amount, they'd be receiving a smaller portion, but something that was more than what they would be getting if the project didn't take place. Over the course of a 28-year period, it was about $2 million in revenue for the school district. Again, a little bit less than $2 million in revenue for the city, and then a lot less for the county based on the taxes.
Over 28 years.
Over 28 years, that's correct. Yep.
So that doesn't equal a lot of money really every year.
Well,
It's more than what they got now.
that's exactly the
But
point.
it doesn't, okay, so I'm just trying to understand what the real issue is. So they want more money every year rather than, they'd rather have 0 than a little, and then
I'm not going to
I'm just trying
hypothesize
to
on the school
understand what
district.
they're
Yeah,
thinking, maybe.
I'm not sure. I think that we had pushed to visit them at a work session or a committee meeting prior to their vote. They declined those offers.
Oh,
So that was disappointing, but we will continue, fighting for the project, and we're confident that we're gonna be able to get something done that where everyone benefits, really. But
But there's another good part to this thing that I don't think everybody understands either. There's about $4.5 million worth of infrastructure that has to go into that site to put the house up. Okay. In the negotiations, I didn't want to eat that for the city.
right.
Okay, so I negotiated with them to pay for that over a 25 to 28-year period. That's how the pilot bond got in there. So $250,000 a year was going to pay that debt off.
Right.
Okay, so they're still making it. That's what got deviated. People look at from a pilot standpoint.
So that 250 could have gone into the revenue, broken up, however.
yeah,
Right.
the city would have had to pay.
Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's a lot of money to come out of pocket,
Correct.
Yep.
especially when you don't really have it.
So,
So the only other thing I might suggest to look at, and maybe you already have, is what the developer's fee is in going into the development project. Because often the developers get their development fee up front when a bank has done financing. And that might give you, I mean, if it's $3 or $4 or $5 million, that's why you maybe can have them take less if they really want to do the work, and then they get paid on the back end, so they have more invested.
got it, yeah,
The total developer's fee on this whole project's $800,000.
Oh, so it's not,
Part of it has to do with the parking, part of it has to do with the housing. If they don't do the housing, they don't get that part of it.
right. Right. Sometimes they're millions of dollars.
Right, I know.
Mhm. Okay,
I think what the mayor's trying to say is that this was a good deal for the city.
yes, no, I got it.
Maybe everyone
And I
didn't
want it. I
understand
just
it.
am trying to understand all the little intricacies of it.
it's a very complex deal, and I think that if you look at this in other cities, right, this happens all the time. Doesn't happen all the time in the world, right? We have pilots, but these are creative public-private partnerships. These are complex deals. And, just because something's new doesn't mean it's not good. And I
Right.
think that's some of what we ran into with the school district, frankly.
And is it correct to say that if it wasn't a city school district, they wouldn't have had a vote? I think that, I'm not sure.
I think it's any taxing entity, yeah, so
I
if this was
I
out,
wasn't sure. I know there's different rules.
Any taxing authority.
Okay.
I get asked questions about this all the time, and I don't even know how to answer, but now I have more information.
yeah,
Betsy, and here's the other thing that I think is important, okay? This is in today's environment, okay? There was a lot of things said at this meeting where we didn't get a chance to speak, meaning the mayor and the developer,
That's
okay?
wrong.
And other people came in and said things that were blatantly inaccurate. Okay, not knowing, this project has over 70% union labor on the project,
Right,
okay, dollar wise, okay? They're basically saying there's no union labor, they don't know what's being done. There's a lot of local businesses involved in it. Okay, so what was said was just totally false.
right. Well, good to know all this information, so now I can talk intelligently
Mhm.
about what's really going on.
we'll figure something out. We've got a good team, and the developer wants to do this job, and he wants to, they wanna be in Binghamton as a market, so.
Which is very encouraging, given the environment in terms of lending and higher interest rates, to hear that they're not just backing out.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
That was kind of all I had. That was the big headline from the last month or so, unless I'm forgetting something. I don't know.
that's enough.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Sarah?
I will keep my remarks brief. The two big updates we have are that last year we were very excited to sign the option agreement with Steezy for the 8-acre parcel of the Charles Street Business Park. They have let us know that they will not be renewing that. Pros and cons, the pro is that we get to keep the fee that they paid up front, which gives us a little bit extra breathing room in this situation where our UDAG money is tight. Disappointed to hear that, but really it's not a result of the city of Binghamton. They had positive things to say about their interactions with us. It's about the regulatory environment in New York State.
Mm.
They have no estimation on when they can even get their licensing to do what they wanted to do in Binghamton. They still have us in mind. They still want to come back to the table if and when they're able to get over the regulatory hurdles from New York State, but they just didn't want to hold this piece of property and continue to pay money on a property, and quite frankly, hold it up from us being able to look at other options when there was really no end in sight to the regulatory hurdles that they are looking to overcome. So we've had some interest in that site over the last year, so we'll reach out to those folks. We're also doing a reuse analysis of 22 Charles Street, which is owned by the city of Binghamton, but having that associated 8-acre parcel right there makes that an even more attractive development opportunity. So once that reuse analysis is done, I think we'll start looking at whether we want to aggressively market those two parcels together and what kind of makes sense, but still waiting on the data to come in from that reuse analysis so we can make a data-driven decision on how best to pursue that. But technically it's 3 parcels there. We had combined them in the option as an 8-acre parcel, but there's multiple parcels there, so it doesn't have to be a project that requires 8 acres. So I think we would love to see the entire 8-acre parcel developed as one, kind of our preference. But we'll come back together as a board, probably our strategic priorities committee, and discuss what our priorities are for development at that site, and kind of figure out what we want to do in terms of marketing and moving forward on that. So disappointing on the one hand, but understandable based on everything we've been hearing from New York State and the Office of Cannabis Management and businesses that are trying to come into New York, especially large scale. And then the other piece of good news at the Charles Street Business Park that I know came out as a press release was that Innovation Associates will be locating more than 85 executive employees at the existing Save Around facility on Emerson Parkway. Save Around's plan is to build a new facility at the Charles Street Business Park, purpose-built for them, more right-sized what their operations are now. They've temporarily relocated and they'll be looking to move forward on that once we get to the hurdles of getting the Innovation Associates building renovated for their purposes. As I know, Save Around's been involved in those conversations as well. So, and I just want to give a shout out to Joel. I know I always say that he's, you know, our real estate whiz, but it's not just because he's looking on the greater Binghamton MLS, it's because he's built contacts over the last 22 years. He knows real estate agents, he knows property owners, he's able to give people a call. He's able to build these relationships, and then when an opportunity comes up, he knows who to go to talk to and really get these things over the finish line. So I will try not to say it's just real estate anymore, because it's not, Joel. It's all of the relationships you've built, and we're really appreciative of all of your work on this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Thank you, Sarah.
Great executive director.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Little boomerang there you go.
Yeah, love it. Anybody have anything
And-
else? All right, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Do we have an August meeting?
We do not have an August.
Okay,